Welcome back to the Retire As You Desire show, and today's episode is all about Social Security income. And in the last segment, we were really going into a deep dive as to how Social Security is calculated. And we talked about how if you start your Social Security income at the ripe age of 62, you could have a 30% decrease in your lifetime income. It's a big deal. But I want to go through this example one more time so that we could really hit the highlights here, because there's a couple different ways to really plan for your Social Security income. And this really starts with the AIME calculation. This is where we're looking at the top 35 earning years times 12 months is going to give you 420 months. But here's where it gets complicated. And then your PIA is going to have 3 different bend points. And this is where it gets calculated because there's different percentages. And then in the third stage, we need to adjust for your age, depending on if you take your Social Security at your full retirement age, which is primarily 66 or 67 these days. But if you do it at 62, your benefits are reduced. So overall, we want to understand what's the benefit of taking things early versus later. This is the most crucial decision in your retirement income plans. And then it goes into the next phase, which is your cost of living adjustments. In our industry, we call this COLA adjustments, and the news and the media, they say the same thing. COLA means cost of living adjustments. Now, most people have no idea how this is actually benchmarked or assessed. I'm going to give you a simplified example as to how Social Security actually changes this every year and how these items are calculated, so you're educated as to how things work. The whole point of this show. So the actual process of calculating your COLA adjustments is going to be really involving detailed rules and considerations, including specific adjustments for early versus late retirement income planners, family benefits, and unfortunately, if we have disability benefits, this is something we need to consider too. So for an accurate calculation tailored to your specific situation, it's really recommended to use the SSA.gov, the Social Security Administration's website. They have some great online calculators, and to be honest with you, I've had some great interactions with their offices, and I had to do this with my father actually. We had to help him with his Social Security because when my mom passed away, it was just a whole nother process, and I experienced this firsthand, not only with my clients, but with my family, and how helpful they are. They really were great to work with, and they helped us figure out what's the best way for him to plan moving forward. And here's some different scenarios. So there are resources out there. Also, your financial advisor could be a great resource for you as well. Now, COLA adjustments. How is it calculated for Social Security? The cost of living adjustments for your benefits are going to be calculated to show that there is a better purchasing power if we are seeing inflation in our economy. And your Social Security income opportunities here are super important because inflation could erode your dollars if they're not invested and if they're just sitting in a bank account not making money. So here's a detailed look on how COLA is determined. In the third quarter of every year, the Social Security Administration are going to determine the base period. Now, this is all based on a time factor. The Consumer Price Index for urban wage, remember this CPI-W that we talked about earlier, is going to be a big part of this calculation. So the CPI with the SSA, they're comparing average CPI for the third quarter, which is July, August, and September of the current year, to the average CPIW for the third quarter of the last year, in which a COLA was determined. This is like the basis for how they adjust for inflation. So they're going to calculate the percentage increase as well. And this is what's reported every year, usually third quarter, fourth quarter, for new income benefits for the following year. Now, let's say there's an increase in the consumer price index from the previous third quarter average. The percentage increase is now going to be calculated. So if for the third quarter of the base year was 250 as an average, and let's say the third quarter of the current year is 260, the increase is going to be calculated as follows. It's all a percentage. So we're going to be figuring out the percentage of that increase. And this is how you're going to get an increase for your retirement income. So if we do the math, this is roughly a 4% increase. So over time, this is going to get applied to your COLA, your cost of living adjustments. So this percentage increase is then applied to current Social Security benefit amounts for those who are receiving Social Security. Now, there have been years when you get a big zero and people say, well, the cost of gas is still up, eggs are still up, bread is still up, my daily cost of living has gone up, but over this year period from third quarter to third quarter, from the base to the current year, if the Social Security Administration is not showing inflation, you may not have an increase in income. And I want to make a very valid point here. This is why we want to have increasing income opportunities from your investments. This is why it's so crucial to not just be on a fixed income. Luckily, we have opportunities for your Social Security to rise, but that's why we want to still stay invested in the market. So when the markets are up, we can help offset these increased costs, especially property taxes. That's the biggest one I see. This way, we could potentially have still more fun in retirement with more paychecks. But getting back to your COLA, the average CPI for the third quarter versus the base is what you want to be paying attention to. We want to take a look at the inflation numbers, and if we see interest rates where they're at and inflation where it's at, there's probably a pretty good potential to have an increase in retirement income for your Social Security benefits. But if there's not, this is where you want to have your investments still working for you to really help offset these no cost of living increases from a COLA perspective. And another thing when we're looking at your cost of living adjustments, it really makes a big difference if you wait. If you start your Social Security benefits at 62, imagine how much money you're missing out on as to waiting till you're 67 versus 70. It's a big difference in your monthly benefit. And I want to make another really strong point here. This is very important. You're not going to see your cost of living adjustment until things are determined annually, but this is usually announced in October, but they don't go into effect until the following year in January. So that's normally when our clients see larger retirement income dollar amounts from the Social Security, because that's when the cost of living adjustments kick in. So we have a couple months there where we've been kind of struggling potentially from an income perspective because all the costs have gone up, but you're not going to get that extra increase until next year. Really important thing to plan for. And then I want to talk about deflation, because in all the news these days, it's all about inflation. But there have been parts and times in the United States where we have deflation, where the costs are going down. I don't foresee this happening anytime soon, but this could happen. And this is where the Social Security Administration provides official COLA announcements. And they say, you know what, we're not going to be having increases because of deflation. Things have actually gone the opposite way. So when that happens, we want to have your investment dollars working for you. And then the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they publish the CPIW data monthly. So if you're worried about this, you can look into this information every single month and kind of estimate your future cost of living adjustments. Now also, working with a financial advisor like myself or potentially yours, there's some incredible online calculators that can help you sort of plan for this and set a benchmark for your Social Security income. Most people like to use a 2 or 3% increase because inflation has historically been at those dollar amounts. So from a planning perspective, we want to plan for these areas in the future. Now, in today's show, we've hit really an important part, how things are calculated in the first section. Most people don't understand it, and most people never want to do that work. And that's okay. That's why you have financial advisors. And the SSA.gov website has great calculators as well. If you need help with this, reach out to us. I'd love to help you through this process because it really is the most important part of your retirement income plan. But I saved the best for the next part. You're definitely going to want to stick around because most people think the Social Security Administration is broke. I'm going to kind of debunk some of this information and give you real live data as to how this could play out in the future for your retirement income years. Stay tuned to the Retire As You Desire show. The average life expectancy was in your 60s in the 1930s, but when the Social Security Administration was founded, people didn't realize that our life expectancy was going to really drastically change.